I'd like to call the December meeting report to order. Begin by pledging to our flag. We pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming this evening. We have a few simple rules. One would be that if anybody is going to record the meeting, if they're not before the meeting or right now, if they are in fact. And
Mr. Chairman, I will be recording the meeting.
your name?
Earl Schiffman.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask Earl Shuckman what his intentions are to videotape this meeting.
I do not believe you have the right to ask that.
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Also, would like to reintroduce Rick and Zach from Susquehanna High School, who have been good enough to come over here for the second time and record our monthly meetings. It'll be played at some point on the Township's website. We're looking forward to that. Thank you both. And finally, when you address the board, it would be very helpful if you use the microphone, if you are willing to do that. Don't speak very loudly. At least give us your name and address. Thank you. We have a public hearing scheduled for tonight on our sign ordinance. So I'm going to adjourn our regular monthly meeting and open the public hearing on the sign modification, on a sign modification application made by AT&T. Is anybody here that represents AT&T? Yes. Thank you for coming. If you would begin by stating the purpose of the modification request.
Yes, my name is Richard Crawford. I'm with Shrewsbury Sign Company. We're located in Orangeburg, Pennsylvania. And I'm here on behalf of AT&T in regard to their request for a larger wall sign. Has everybody seen the packet or the design?
We have in our packet a couple bits of information, including the formal application itself. And so go ahead and proceed.
Okay. We have a 36 square foot wall sign that has channel letters. So at night, only the letters light up, or the globe and the letters. The authorized retailer letters do not light up. Well, I have some points I'd just like to bring to the board that I think cumulatively would give you a reason to approve the sign, if I could just run down them.
Surely.
First, we have an issue with the AT&T trademark. We can't change it or manipulate it. So you might say, well, just put AT&T up there and make it big within what's allowed by code. We can't do that. We're bound to present the trademark as it's shown in the proportions shown with a clear space around it. So we're inside a space and it makes it even smaller and harder to read. I saw the storefront. I did the design originally. I think the sign we're requesting is in proportion to the storefront, and I think the sign by code is not in proportion. I think we have an issue of other tenants in this little center up on the hill where they have larger signs, and because of the width of the storefront, the AT&T ends up with a much smaller sign, and they're almost right next door. The Panera Bread in particular. Now they have more storefront, I'm sure, but it seems there's a disconnect there, perhaps. We're asking for a bulk or dimensional adjustment, not a use variance. My understanding there's a different standard for bulk and dimensional variances in Pennsylvania called the Shrewsbury standard. I'll let the scholars debate that, what that means, but it does give the board another avenue to look at the variance. I could argue that the sign by code is actually almost a denial of a sign because it's so small. I've never run across a 10 square foot sign on a storefront.
May I just interject? On behalf of Shrewsbury Township, I'd like to apologize to you and the others in the shopping center because our omission of part of our sign ordinance was omitted in error, section P-13D. which addresses your sign in particular, which gives you 4 square feet per linear foot, up to 200 square foot for your store sign. If that provision of our sign ordinance had not been omitted and found out, then I don't think you'd be in this position. So one, I'd like to make a motion that we grant your variance and that we refund any and all expenses that you have had concerning this issue for our township, because I believe that an error was made on our part for all the store owners. And so I
This is
like-
not the time to make a motion. We're at a public hearing.
I understand.
All right, well, then just hold your motion until we get to that
Okay.
point, please. You proceed.
So I'm looking at the storefront. What you said makes more sense to me now.
Yes.
I'll go to my last point now. I did a survey of townships in the area, mostly York, but some Adams. And these towns would allow a larger sign than what is permitted under the code right now. Springfield, York, Windsor, Paradise, Strabane, I think that's Adams. Mount Pleasant, Hopewell, Manchester, Newbury, Fairview, Upper Allen, Cumberland, and Penn Township. And I didn't go through every one. So it seemed like there was something going on there.
It was inadvertently left off out of the ordinance.
Yeah.
There was no malicious intent.
No, but it was omitted.
Right. And I think there are standards for on-premise signs. A lot of research has been done on Penn State on the size of a wall sign, how big it should be. And I think what we're asking for is more in line with that than what is there. And they're my points.
We understand the situation. Thank you very much. Any questions on the part of the board members? Any other comments from the audience, people that are here tonight? Seeing none, I'll call into the public hearing, and we'll proceed with our meeting. Now, we could go right in and make a decision on this request at this time rather than wait till under new business.
You
So-
should, the general standing.
Well, I just said we would,
Yeah.
okay? And so I'll entertain a motion to whatever.
I make the motion that we grant their variance and refund any and all charges that the township has charged them concerning this issue.
Is there a second?
I'd like to know more about these expenses before I'd second that motion.
It's a $400 fee that they charged them for this hearing. It was unnecessary. And I don't know of any fees that our township engineer or CEO has charged you concerning back and forth or with our attorney concerning the sign variance that, in my opinion, was not necessary.
We've asked our manager.
It's a flat $400 application fee.
No other fees have been charged?
No.
Okay, well then that, I asked for the variance of $400. You shouldn't have to pay a fee for a variance when it was an error on our part.
Are there any other costs at all incurred in
See that?
your time, staff time in general?
Nobody else charged their account.
AT&T's
No,
office
it's a
is
flat
up considerably.
application fee.
Yeah, but I mean, the sign application for a commercial sign is $150, but you didn't charge for correspondence back and forth concerning this issue with Keith
No,
and
it's not like a
engineers.
subdivision land development plan. It's a
Okay.
flat
Just
application.
to make sure.
So do you want
Anything
to
else?
change your motion to to approving the modification and refunding the $400?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we grant the variance and refund your $400 fee that you charged, that we were charged.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? So the township is not going to incur any loss because of this.
Not directly, no.
No.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 No.
Aye. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you very much.
Your time was well spent, right?
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. We're back on our regular meeting. Item number 4, approval of minutes. We've always received a copy of this many weeks ago. I'll entertain a motion to approve them with or without modification. I make the motion to approve the minutes dated November 5th as amended.
I'll second.
Call for the, any discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 The next item was, the meeting was held November 12th. It was a carryover meeting from our meeting on the 5th. We've all seen the minutes from that meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for that meeting. I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You all have a copy of the treasurer's report dated November 2014. I'll entertain a motion to approve or not approve those, that report.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 6 on our agenda. Public comment, limited to 5 minutes per speaker on any subject you want to discuss. Seeing no hands raised, we'll move on to ordinances and resolutions. The first resolution, number A, resolution number 2014-20, setting the real estate and fire tax rates. Todd, do you want to review that so everybody knows what we're talking about?
Yeah, the general real estate tax, which goes to the general fund, that millage will remain unchanged at .074 mils, which works out to approximately $14.80 on a home assessed at $200,000. The fire tax, which goes to the fire departments, and if I could just touch on that, I did have that on the agenda there. The fire tax goes specifically to 3 fire departments that serve Shrewsbury Township. It's Shrewsbury Fire Company, Glenrock Fire Company, and New Freedom, or some may know it as Rose Fire Company. The 2014 distribution to each of those fire companies was $47,465, and that went to each of the 3 fire departments. So the fire tax, that's what that specific tax goes to. The current millage rate is at .25 mils, and that will be, or is proposed to be increased to .34 mils. So a home that's assessed at $200,000 currently pays $50. The new tax 2015 will increase $18 to $68 for 2015 if this passes. And that's what's been budgeted as well.
Can you repeat that number?
The millage or the dollar value? Yeah, the millage rate is .34, and if you have a home assessed at $200,000, it's $50, and at .34 it goes up $18 to a total of $68.
It's .034.
Will you explain?
No, it's .34 mils.
Oh, 0.034 cents per hundred.
We had a meeting with the Shrewsbury Fire Department.
Yeah, we had a request from one of the fire departments to actually increase the fire tax, and one of the reasons, and we did hear from some of the other fire companies, is their problems that they have getting volunteers, and it's harder to do fundraisers, and that was the reason for the request. And we did meet with the Shrewsbury Borough officials as well as Shrewsbury Fire Company, and at the budget meeting we had, I guess it was we had New Freedom, and we had Shrewsbury Fire Company here, as well as Shrewsbury Borough. So we did meet with them, and they did actually request a much higher amount than that, but the board didn't feel they could justify it at this point in time.
Thank you. We're very fortunate that we don't have to supply our own fire department for the township. We rely on the 3 volunteer fire departments. And they're saying at some point they may have to go out of the volunteer business and have a paid fire department, which would make everything more expensive for us, for them and for us. So the slight increase hopefully will eliminate that need. Any questions from anybody in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
So with regards to the letters that we receive annually, we send in the donation depending on the number of residents you have living in your home.
Yes.
They're, because of the fact they're not getting that from the majority of the citizens is why they're increasing this tax.
I think that's one of the
Yeah,
reasons.
that's part of it, but they do a lot of fundraising events as well.
Mhm.
We encourage everybody to donate on their own.
Right. Yeah,
That's-
still donate
please,
because they still need it.
donate, right?
Yeah, and support their fundraisers in a big way.
Yes, all right.
I'd like to see the other municipalities in the area too step up to the plate and match what we're doing as far as the millage. I think campaign on the fire departments and would be helpful as far as getting the rest of the municipalities to get on board with the same millage rate.
Actually, sir, if you remember correctly, Shrewsbury's doing more than they are.
They're doing .25, I believe.
All right, let's
Aren't they?
move on. Jeff, anything else?
Tony said something.
I'm sorry,
Tony,
can we get your name and address for the minutes?
Sure, Sherry Butler
Yes,
and Russet Farm Drive.
Okay, thank you.
And Tony said something, I couldn't hear you, Tony?
I believe the borough went to .4 something for 115,000.
That's what I thought.
.47 then, is that what it is? Okay, good. But Glen Rock still is just a donation of 10,000, right?
I can't speak for them.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Tony. The next item, I want to combine C and D. You want to introduce that?
We need
We need to,
motion.
we need a motion.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution 2014-20, setting the real estate and fire tax rates.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We need to approve the ordinance number 2014-06. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance 2014-6 fire hydrant tax.
That's the fire hydrant tax.
Yeah.
Can we discuss it?
We got to discuss that.
Okay.
That's got a second, and then we'll just have a discussion. Is there a second on the motion to approve to adopt or enact an ordinance on fire hydrant tax? Is there a second for that? All right, that's move on. Let's discuss that with the fire hydrant tax.
Excuse me, can you discuss an item that hasn't been seconded?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Can you discuss an item that has not been seconded?
Yes.
We're going to come back to it. We'll let you speak then, all right? But I think it's important to give the background and the nature of this ordinance before we even have a motion. Okay. So I do want to introduce that matter.
Yeah, this came up because the township has a general policy that if there's specific services in which a specific group of properties receive a benefit, that they usually pay that tab. One example is sanitary sewer. We have an area that the township is billed and pays street light taxes, so there's some properties that pay a street light tax every year. And in the process of doing the budget, we realized that we're spending around $18,000 to $19,000 a year between York Water Company, majority of going to York Water Company, and then some to Glen Rock Water Company, which is a maintenance and basically a rental of the fire hydrants. And that's always been paid out of the general fund, which is funds from township-wide. About 28% of the properties in the township are served by fire hydrants, but 100% of the properties have been paying that $18,000 to $19,000 a year. There is about 811 properties that are affected, and we have approximately 2,900 properties in the township. The average assessment of a home that's affected is roughly $203,500. And the average fire hydrant tax will be $24.42 a year. And that'll generate about $19,800. And again, we're just basically taking in what gets paid out for that hydrant service. And that millage is set, proposed at 0.12 mils.
Thank you, Bill. Gentlemen, you have a question, sir?
Not at this point.
I'll get to the person back there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
can I ask Since we're videotaping this for the public, if we could ask the speakers to come to the microphone so that there's not ghost speakers.
I made that earlier. You want to come to the microphone?
Sure.
Wayne Bryant, 215 Prospect Circle. Good evening. Just have a question, how they determined the footage from the fire hydrant. How did you?
The 780 feet,
Yes.
that's set by state law under the Township second-class code.
Okay. In our particular community, we have a private community, and I think we have five hydrants. We're wondering why that shouldn't be shared, because all our residents in that community share equally in the, the water supply.
I'm not sure I'm following your question. You mean just your community built for the five only, or?
Well, they'd be spread among the 90 homes instead of just the 700 feet of the homes that are there.
Let's see if I have a map here.
The village of Shrewsbury.
It is to all the homeowners that use public water.
Yes, but it can only be those charged, as I read that, the 780 feet, is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a radius of 780 feet. I can't imagine not everyone's going to be covered in your neighborhood.
Radius. Okay, so it's really like 1,400 feet.
It could include properties outside of your development as well.
Yeah, I think so too. That's on our GIS through our engineer. I don't have that particular map, but I can confirm that and email them.
So it basically will affect everybody in the community.
I believe it will.
Okay, that was my question.
I'm certain of it, but I'll verify that.
You're in different communities.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
You want to
Rustic Farm,
Rustic
we're
Farm.
TBAs.
Oh, gotcha, okay, the villas. Okay, if you can leave contact information with Wendy, and I'll call you, or... Sure.
My name is Leonard Aberbach, 273 Prospect Circle. I have a question to ask. So, as of right now, the township, everyone is paying into it as of now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you put a limit in terms of, or a spec in of 750 feet. So anyone within that area is going to have to pay this tax on there.
That's correct.
Now, what happens to people who are out of that area? They won't pay anything towards that, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. When they have a fire outside that area, okay, I guess it's hose length, how much hose you can put out while they get that at 750 feet.
It's 780, I don't know where
Okay,
it's...
whatever it is, but it's, I'm sure it has, in terms of how much hose they can lay out.
Maximum.
Right, in terms of that. All right. We have tankers, don't we?
Correct.
Okay. Where do you fill the tankers from? The people, outside the 750. Where do they go to get the water?
Well, I will say this, sir. They do come to my pond to get water.
Well, no.
I'm just saying, they do use ponds, they use streams.
And they do use hydrants.
But like I said, Shrewsbury gets theirs from the borough system. I'm almost certain Tony can answer for sure. Where do you get your tank water usually? I know you get it down at Walls a lot.
It's all going to depend on where the fire is.
Right, I understand that.
I'm assuming the issue, your question is if you're being charged a tax on a hydrant on Prospect Circle, if there's a fire out on Windy Hill Road,
Right.
we're going to come looking for water
Right.
at the closest hydrant.
Correct.
So if we're using that hydrant, the people that are getting water are getting taxed. That's where you're going with it.
So could you
Yeah, that's what I'm
introduce
saying.
yourself, please?
My name's Tony Myers, Fire Chief of Shrewsbury Fire Company.
Thank you.
And I do, right, we've got to support, there's no question, we have to support our fire department. No question about that. Whatever it takes, you got to, because, like you said, to go out and have, these people are volunteering, and we have to support them. But if we go out and start to, to salary and all that, is going to be, right.
In answer to your question, the fire department goes to the closest water source.
Correct.
So depending on where we are, if we're closer to a pond, we're going to go there
Right, you jump the,
and
right.
do the suction hoses.
Right,
If we're closer to a hydrant,
Right.
it could be a Shrewsbury Borough hydrant, could be a York Water hydrant in the township, it could be one in Hopewell Township.
right,
It's just whatever the closest one is. And then
correct,
we notify the authority of the water department that's being used.
right.
So if we're in Shrewsbury Township out on Windy Hill Road, and we're going to use a Shrewsbury Borough, or a Hopewell Township, that would be the closest hydrant, Hopewell Township's notified that we're using it, and they do what they do. But we just notify that the hydrants are being used.
Right, but hydrants are used.
If it's closer than a pond.
Right,
We have designated ponds out in the townships in southern Moore County, and we go to that. If they're closer, we go to a hydrant if it's closer.
so if one pond, if a pond is like on the big pond down in,
You want Susquehanna Trail South,
right on,
Bartlesville.
Susquehanna Trail.
Yeah.
Lower part there.
Yeah, we use
Right,
that.
right, you use that, but if it's on the other side of the bridge,
It's whatever's closer.
right. So that's what I'm just saying, is that their hydrants are being used for the pumping, I mean, for the water. But also the other thing, it's more expensive. It's more in terms of cost to the fire department to have, to hold water too. So if you go from the fire hydrant and you're doing that, except where a person has is close to a fire hydrant, so there's another cost differential in there. That's what I want to know.
One thing to keep in mind also, sir, is you do get a price discount on your insurance, your homeowner's insurance, by having that fire hydrant.
No question about that, but at the same time, it costs more in terms of water, in terms of hauling outside, so that it balances one out to another.
If there was a way we could determine how much water is taken from a hydrant to be used outside of that 780 feet, whatever it is, then we could maybe deal with this a little better, but anyway, we could, I don't know how we get that number on that.
That would be difficult, because it's a matter of, like the fire chief says, it's where the fire is. If you have a hydrant that's 1 mile away to where a pond is 4 miles away, you're talking, what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes total of a differential maybe?
You know, this is what, $24, so it was said.
Yeah, the average is 24.42.
Now, I'll say this, speaking just for myself, if it was 3 or 4 times that, then I think your argument would have a little bit more weight. Your argument is perfectly logical.
Right.
But it's
That's
about the
all
mechanics
I'm
of
saying.
it. So that, you know, $24 a year, none of like Bill, that seems like a reasonable amount of money to pay for this.
3 Starbucks, 4 Starbucks. No, but I'm just saying you might be going down a slippery slope in saying you pay, you don't pay, you pay. Yeah. Taxes, if we want services, we gotta pay taxes. No question about it. But, you know, the thing is I think the whole community has to know that everything, you know, we're in it. So when you pay tax, I don't pay it, but this is that.
We'd like to charge, basically, I think, I can't do the whole board, but a user fee is really, rather than charge the whole township for something that only serves a particular area of the township, it seems like that is.
We'll call it a user fee then, instead of saying a tax. You know, if you're going to say, okay, we're charging you because you have hydrants, or we're not charging you because you don't have hydrants.
Well, the township is paying $19,000 a year, whatever it is, for those hydrants. And that is not fair either. Of course, to charge everybody in the township for a fee is primarily for the more developed areas. Right? So it's not a perfect situation, but if you can figure out how we can prorate this, you come knocking, will you? But your points are well made. Yes, sir.
Earl Shookman, Bissell's Church Road. The reason we never put this hydrant tax on before was because the hydrants provide water that can be used throughout the entire township. I spoke with the fire chief today, and they can stretch 2,000 feet of hose, not 780 feet of hose. They can stretch 2,000 feet of hose or more. They can, anytime that they need to get water, they can always use the hydrants. In our community, there's hydrants, I do believe, in the Glen Rock area. You have hydrants in Shrewsbury. And yeah, it is around the area that most of the developments are. But the water is available. And that was the reason we never went to this before, why we always took the fee from the general fund, because in theory can benefit the entire township. That would be just like charging a fee for a pond. If someone has a pond, then you're going to charge a fee to provide water for everyone around the pond. I mean, yeah, you pay $20,000 a year. Yes, it did start out a lot lower, but the decision at that time was made that because it can provide water for use throughout the township and throughout the community, not just in the township, that's why it was taken from the general fund.
It may have the potential to do that, but my question is how often does it go out? Tony, how often do they extend a fire hose out 2,000 feet? Thank you for your
Pardon?
Particularly.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Pardon me?
I missed your question, I'm sorry.
Okay. How often, assuming that you can go as far as 2,000 feet with your hoses from a hydrant, how often do you actually go that far, or over 1,000 feet?
The basic premise of a water supply. So we're going to go to the closest source, a pond or a hydrant. If generally, and as I explained to Mr. Schuckman when he called me this afternoon, everyone has a different theory on how to do it. Every fire chief's different. I gave him my personal formula that we use at Shrewsbury. If I'm within 2,000 feet of a hydrant, I'm going to use it. If I'm past a 2,000 foot mark, then we consider a tanker shuttle, because it takes too much apparatus to keep the hose on. You have to have a fire engine at the minimum every 1,500 feet to do a relay with the hose line. You just can't lay 5 miles of hose because you won't get it at the other end, be refreshing wells. So our general rule is 2,000. If we're within 2,000 feet of a hydrant, we drop the hose, put another engine in the middle, and we pump.
You do that routinely? I mean, a lot of times over the course of a year. I mean, is it a rare event, or is it?
Well, it just depends on how many fires there are. We use hydrants all the time. We use tanker shuttles. I mean,
you have no problem with 2,000 feet if you have to. There's no real issue with that as far as you're concerned. Going that far out, 2,000 feet.
For me, no. Another fire chief could have a different answer. I can't speak for a fire chief. But your hydrants in your township really do serve all the township.
Do we have to charge?
That's what you need to keep in mind too, because a hydrant
I understand that.
on Elm Drive,
They're not wrong, because it's doesn't mean that they're good.
The $24 household fee, is that cast in law? Can we vary that?
No, because it's based on assessment, you have to do it by millage.
Well,
That's why the 2442 is based on the average assessed home within the 780 feet. You can't charge a flat fee, it has to be based on assessment
but
on millage.
can we charge less millage?
Sure, you can set the millage at whatever, you can charge up to 2 mills. This is point
But
1
the question back, you want to come to the microphone again?
No, not you.
You're next, Earl.
I just have one real quick one.
Go ahead.
There's two ways you can do it. You can either charge within the 780 feet, or you can assess the entire township, which is the same as taking it out of the general fund.
That was my point.
Yes, sir, come on up.
Roger Grammer, that's 741 Chief Drive, Shrewsbury Township. You said it's 800 and some homes that have fire hydrants, is that correct? And
It's about 810 homes that are within 780 feet of a fire hydrant, that's correct.
Okay, we've just established that really has no restriction about which home they be using fire hydrants to put out fires, is that correct?
No.
2,000 feet.
Yeah, 2,000 feet, but there's a lot of areas that are well beyond 2,000 feet within this township.
Okay. So we'll use tankers.
Yeah. Like I had mentioned, of those 811 homes that are within 780 feet, that represents 28% of the properties of the township. That are within 780 feet.
So the mill rate that you're charging is going to do what? How much are they going to generate?
About 19,800.
So in other words, these 800 some homes are paying for the entire charge that the county township is paying for before, is that correct?
That's correct, that was a general fund.
So these 800 some homes now put the entire property cost for this water supply, and all the other people who may be using that water supply, maybe incidentally that the water supply charge you're asking for is just for use for fires?
I don't know what it's all used for. That's generally all it's used for. I'm not aware.
Is it the charges for fire hydrant use?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the charge to the township is for the fire hydrant.
So the 800 some homes will be paying for all the fire hydrant use, and also water used by every fire hydrant, no matter where that water goes to. Is that
That's
correct?
correct. That's correct.
Do you think that's an unfair charge? That we should, 800 some homes should pay just all that? Incidentally, the $24 is assuming $200,000 per home, and our township, or our development, no houses under 200,000.
But that's the assessed value.
Yes, I'm talking assessed value. None of them are under 300.
What would you suggest?
Either a lower rate or can keep it with the general fund.
Okay.
Because if everyone in the community is getting the benefit of it, as we've been illustrating here, why is it that just 800 some homes
This
are
is
paid for
not
it?
an adversary discussion. We're open to your thoughts and suggestions, and we're somewhat enlightened by it, by what Tony said, what you said. So I raised the question to our manager. I said, could we reduce it? So
And something else to keep in mind, it was brought up earlier, those homes that are within those 780 feet also get somewhat of a credit on their fire insurance, where those outside of that, I believe it's 1,000 feet, do not get those credits.
Depending upon how much their insurance company is giving that credit for.
That's correct, every insurance company's different.
So maybe considerably less than the $24.
I think the board needs to take all your thoughts into consideration now and make a decision. I think we should, my personal feeling, everybody else has said, we lower that millage rate. So it takes into consideration the fact that there are some areas outside of these 700 plus feet that are being served.
I'd suggest do half the millage that was suggested, do 0.06.
Any other discussion? You want to make that a motion?
I'll make a motion that we.
I'll second that motion.
I'm gonna make the motion so I can hear it.
Okay, you already made it. Go ahead. Make it formally.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're certainly welcome.
I make the motion that we approve the fire hydrant tax based on 0.06 mil to the 811 properties that are within 780 feet of the hydrants.
You want to second that? I'll second. Any further discussion? We have a motion, a second, I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
No.
Okay.
Motion failed.
Correct. I'd like to make a motion again that we approve the fire at the 0.12 millage rate, so the average fire tax per property for the 811 properties that are affected would be the $24.42. That's my motion.
Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Any other motions? I really feel that there are some very good points made here tonight. And if we ignore them, I don't think.
And I think we gotta go back and look at it again.
I just want to
Briefly, later.
Yeah, just very, very brief.
Need a
I know from past experience, that contractors and others will go to fire hydrants to fill pools, things like that. So it's not only the community, but it's, and sometimes it's, am I correct? It's, they go to fire hydrants and they use those for commercial.
The hydrants are owned by York Water Company and Glen.
Well, I thought that,
so we don't know what their usage is.
No, the reason why, because maybe I'm wrong, but I heard that you say we're being charged, or the county, the township is being charged for having fire hydrants by your
York Water Company
Right.
and Glen Rock Water.
Right, that they're charging us for this.
Yes.
But are they charging them are other people who, commercials, are using those fire hydrants? Are they just being charged for the water, or are they not being charged for fire hydrants to be able to deliver that water? You understand what
I
I'm saying?
understand exactly what you're saying. We don't have any information.
We have no clue.
We don't see that happening, but it may happen at times. But I don't think it's a major factor. I'm not sure. Our attorney.
Sorry to interrupt. I
Attorney
work
Buck.
with water authorities,
Yes.
and it's common for them to assess a charge for the water at standard rate and to have some sort of
Oh, okay, so there is, besides the water, I understand the water is being charged, but on top of that, there's a fee for the,
You can count on the authority to
Okay.
charge something like that.
okay.
Now, we have a budget we're going to adopt.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that.
Now, this is going to affect the budget, so it's something we'd rather make a decision on tonight rather than, am I correct? So, I don't understand why it's so difficult to go with a lesser fee based on what we heard tonight.
You said it yourself, you didn't feel the $24 was outrageous. Well, you said it was maybe triple, you might have a problem with that. So earlier, you
I didn't
said,
say that.
yeah, you sure enough did say that.
Yes, sir. Why not?
Wow.
My name is Gary Howard, 235 Prospect Circle. Seeing they want to generate funds for tax for the purpose of the water, seemed to me it would be fair if they made the tax for everybody. And lower the rate, but you would generate more money because you have everybody paying the tax versus the 800 and some people that's in that area.
But I have a fire pond.
That's my problem too.
Yeah, I mean, I have a fire
That's
pond
my-
that I
Yeah.
allow
That's one of the things with
to
me.
use
I
the
have a
water. I don't
pond.
charge anybody for that.
I-
I just want them to put a filter on so they don't suck my fish in. Okay?
Yeah, and when I was talking in reference, I don't know if the ponds is included in the hydrant tax or not.
No.
But-
So people like me, you'd be asking me to supply water for fires throughout Shrewsbury Township and pay a fire tax for your situation.
But if everybody, I'm not just talking about you, I mean
But I
everybody,
am everybody.
everybody in the whole township.
Yeah, that's.
Because, like you said, if they come, let's say it's you know what we did. Let's say it's a fire over in that field over there, and the fire company come, and that fire hydrant that's right at Mount Forest Avenue in Prospect Circle. They're gonna hook to that, and that's common sense, closest water supply.
Plus they have pressure.
Yeah, plus they have pressure. But my point is, if the 800 some people are paying for the fire hydrants being there, but everybody has access. But it would be fair, and I understand what you're saying, but it would be, you would generate what, you would lower the rate because there's more people,
Yeah.
and then you would generate more money. That's
That's not fair at all, okay? That's not fair to me.
Yeah,
It's not fair to her.
well, yeah.
It's fair to you.
No, I know what, my only thing is.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Your
Some-
point, you made your point very well.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a
We
double-edged
have
sword.
people that have large farms, and they pay enormous tax.
Right.
Their millage is very high, so they're gonna pay an exorbitant amount of money. And I'll correct myself, I did initially say that I thought $24 was fair. Thank you for pointing out, Cynthia. You keep them straight. But after hearing everybody speak, I realized that there were some other factors involved here, so I no longer agree that it's fair. Okay? Thank you very much, it's unfair. Yes.
Go back, I'll second that motion.
I'm gonna get beat up over here, but I'm gonna stick my 2 cents in.
All right, let's try this one more time.
The only thing I wanted to say is, why don't you split the difference?
One up here, we just did.
We did it, we
It's
did.
good.
We tried that.
Go to .09.
One last time, just because this is gonna mess up the debt budget. Again, I'm gonna try one last time. I'm making a motion that we accept the fire hydrant tax at .012 mil for the 811 property owners affected at the rate of $24.42 average fire property tax rate.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Point of order, this was already voted on. And you turned it down.
We're trying to
How can you bring it up again?
She didn't get a second on the motion before.
Correct.
Well, it wasn't voted on, but you understand your point. But I think I would rather suspend this until we get to the budget, and then we'll bring it up again. Maybe we
You
can.
got a motion in a second, we have to vote.
Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Roll call.
I'll vote aye.
No?
No.
Yes.
Aye.
So what do we just enact?
.12, $24 to the 811 people.
Correct. Now we
Thank you all for your points of view.
So the vote motion passed?
Yes.
The 811 people will be paid.
Thank you.
Not me, don't thank me.
Did you vote no?
I voted no, he voted no. Thank them.
Thank you.
I voted
You,
yes.
You, and you.
Yeah, that's not what we wanted at all.
Elections
Well,
didn't
I
vote
don't-
again.
And it's not a well.
Excuse me.
I'm just telling you.
Excuse me, but keep in mind, I have a farm, I'm paying high taxes on a farm, I have my own water supply,
Okay.
I don't care to pay for everybody else's, and quite
Neither does the
honestly,
810 homes, either do they. We don't care to pay for
What
everyone
would your
else.
rate be per month compared to the 820 some people have to do that? Compared
the
to,
thing is, you're getting a discount of over $24 from your insurance company for being within the footage.
We don't get a discount.
I mean, I know you don't like it, but it's the vote, sorry.
Thank you.
yeah, I'll agree with that.
Well, I do appreciate your comment and your comments. I know you're disappointed, Sue and I are too, but that's where the board works. We had good discussions, they go to their conscience apparently.
And don't leave the meeting just stay for the rest of the meeting.
Well,
Will things get better?
Yes.
I doubt it.
And moving on. The next item, we're going to combine C and D on the health insurance and on the unemployment compensation. We discussed that at our last meeting. This is a formal approval of that. I'll entertain a motion to approve both those ordinances, please.
We already voted on this in the form of a resolution 3 months ago, that we were going to support the changes brought on by the Affordable Care Act.
And now it's part of the ordinance.
Yeah, you just need us to follow through formally in the form of an ordinance.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2014-07 and 2014-08.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Five ayes. Next, on the second page of our agenda, item number 8, subdivision and land development. And Messina on Manchester Street in Glen Rock. Todd, you want to give everybody a overview of what that involves?
Yeah, this here is down on Manchester Street, just right outside of Glen Rock Borough, across from Wetzel's Markets, if anyone's familiar with that. It's a little shopping center here, pizza shop and so forth. The board's already approved this subdivision plan to break it into 2 parcels. We're required under state law to record the plan with the Recorder of Deeds office within 3 months of the board approving the plan. They're still waiting for a couple of items that are outside of their control with outside jurisdictions. So for that reason, it's before the board for reapproval for another 3 months in hopes that they get those documents within those 3 months.
Okay, right.
And you're not gonna charge them again, your reapproval fee?
I have to see what the resolution says, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for you right now.
You said no before.
Okay, well, is there a motion to reapprove this minor subdivision?
I'll make the motion.
Also,
The motion is second. Any further discussion or any discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 That's, make sure people can hear. Can you hear us when we vote? We can, apparently. Next item is Heath Code Plan 2, Ascot Drive, Shrewsbury, outside of Shrewsbury Borough. You want to introduce the matter for us?
Yeah, again, this is also a reapproval for the same basic reasons. This subdivision is off of Clearview, and this part here is in Shrewsbury Borough. This here is in Shrewsbury Township. And it's these lots right here that the reapproval is for. And again, the board's approved that before, just waiting for a couple of items in order to be able to record that with the Recorder of Deeds office.
Is there a motion to approve, to reapprove this subdivision? We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote. We speak up when we vote.
Aye.
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 Otherwise, people think they're ashamed of what you vote.
I don't think so.
Well, okay, then speak up. Okay, next item. Item number C, Fox and Van Voorst, final subdivision plan. You wanna bring us up to date on this, please, Todd?
Yeah. This particular subdivision is looking to subdivide one lot off, which is right in this area right here. And this was voted on at our October meeting, our November meeting, and all those votes ended in a tie, so it's before the board again this evening. And I don't know if Sue has anything to add as far as, but it's a pretty straightforward 1.5 acre lot subdivision.
And I sent the amended drawing to say existing accessory building on the little house that's been there since 1805. So there is an amendment, as per your request, to name that building the existing accessory building.
Okay,
I have a quick question. Is there still a renter there at that location?
Nope.
I'll make the same motion I made last month to approve the plan based on the fact, under the condition that the dwelling is listed as a tenant dwelling and that there is a right assigned to it and the primary house.
I'll second that motion.
give me a motion in a second. Can I ask a question? Part of the discussion, Jeff. You once said that the kitchen and bathroom fixtures should be removed.
As long as that's all. Now, I made my motion the way it is.
Okay,
It's gotta be listed as a tenant dwelling, and it's gotta have a right assigned to it, If that's all done, and there's a lot, and there's a right assigned to the primary house, I will approve the subdivision. Otherwise, that's what my motion
I
is.
just wanted to clarify. Thank you very much for that.
I'll be recusing myself as usual. I submitted the reasons in writing prior to, and it continues to be the same reasons.
Okay, no further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question with that motion. Now, if that building's used as a storage building, it still has to retain a dwelling right? Jeff, is that the proposal here?
It's, I propose, my motion is that it be listed as a dwelling because that's a tenant dwelling, because that's what it currently is. There's currently a kitchen, it's got septic, it's got sewer, everything. It's been rented in the past. It's listed now on a realtor's website as a guest house and so forth. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a dwelling, and that's what and because of other situations in the township, there's other instances that are the same thing. We have those people charged with a dwelling right. That's the basis of my motion.
The house was permitted in 1991 to exist the way it exists currently. It has a kitchenette, not a full kitchen. It has been occupied by numerous persons all through the years since 1991. When we purchased the property in 2003, we purchased it exactly the way it is, and we've used it in various reasons. When we came to the township in 2005, we asked the township, we have two buildings the way they've always been, and we have 2 development rights, which were verified by Gil Malone to our attorney before we purchased it. So the existing conditions on the house, the houses, the barns, and all that are not affected by any current ordinances. You can't go back and use new ordinances and affect pre-existing, lawfully permitted, non-conforming buildings and uses. I'm going to say it one more time, and that's the last I'm going to say. I've submitted my plan with the accessory building as it was permitted in 1991 and as it's been used from 91 and also since I've been there since 2003, 11 and a half years with various people staying there, okay? So either do the subdivision or do it.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Everything was verified by this township numerous times since 2005.
You could ask your question. Part of the discussion, so you'll be able to ask your question.
Tim, a vote of 3 or less and/or a tie vote. I think it's my understanding of some of the reading I've done the last few days on this issue. If this comes out to be a tie vote or less than 3, then it's automatic denial for this plan, and then this would have to be started from ground zero, basically to resubmit the development. Is that correct?
No.
I'm speaking to Tim.
We have an unusual situation where we have 4 potential voters, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a motion to be passed, there must be 3 votes that are similar, either no votes or yes votes.
Okay.
So if there are 3 yes votes, then the motion passes.
And a tie?
If there's a tie, then there's no action.
Doesn't it just
On that
go
motion. On that motion.
on that motion? So this can keep continuing on for another,
Forever.
Until there's some sort of legislative consensus here, then we're all confounded by this.
okay, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Vote nay.
Susan will be recusing herself since she's the principal. I'll vote nay.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, so we're back where we started.
Okay.
Tallinn Road, Mansfield. I'd like to introduce this please.
This is, a 5-lot subdivision, on the corner of Mount Airy and Tawna. Some of you may recall there was a home that stood here that was torn down recently. It's at Tract. So one home would go back on the same, basic same location, with their ingress and egress off of Tawna. And then there would be a private road coming in off of Mount Airy with 4 homes, and that would be a dead-end street. This has been through staff, through Planning Commission, and Planning Commission has recommended approval on the condition that the items outlined in C.S. Davidson's review letter of October 29, 2014 are addressed prior to recording of the plan.
This is a preliminary plan approval.
This is a preliminary final.
Preliminary final?
Yes. You combine the two because of it being 5 lots or less.
Yes, they can do that. It's kind of weird to call it a preliminary final.
That's how it's worded in the ordinance.
Throughout the ordinance.
It's 2 in 1.
All right. So this is, in actuality, a final subdivision plan. I was correct in calling it a preliminary final. I'll entertain a motion to approve this 5-lot subdivision.
So moved.
Is there a second? Sue seconded it. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Accuse myself since I missed that.
Aye.
It passes. Item number 9 on our agenda, reports. We start with our manager, Todd Ziegler.
The only thing I just want to go over, everything else is pretty self-explanatory. If you have any questions, glad to answer those. The board had asked that we do a recycling audit throughout different locations of the township, which we conducted in August, September, and October. What's up here? We audited 433 homes. Those are the streets, the number of households, for a total of 433. And we did it for a 4-week period. Out of those 433 homes over a 4-week period, we had 33 homes that did not put anything out during that 1-month period. We had 51 homes that put something out only 1 of those 4 weeks. 87 homes that put something out 2 of those 4 weeks. And out of 3 weeks, we had 99 homes. In 4 weeks, we had 163 homes. What we'll do at this point is the 33 homes that did not have anything out, we will send them a reminder letter of what our ordinance requirements are, and then we'll follow up at least with those 33 to make sure that they're complying.
We don't have that sheet, do we? That sheet.
No. Actually, I have some here if you'd like one.
This was just,
You do have all the detail for each.
Yeah, but you have the synopsis and everything.
this was just done this afternoon, sometime today, Todd. But anyway,
Yes.
thank you for that. And it's also going to be included in the newsletter. While we'll get the board reaction to that. I think these results will be put in the newsletter. And let everybody know that we are monitoring this situation. Recycling is important, and it's against our ordinance. If you don't recycle, you could be fined. We've never taken that step, and it's always there for us to recycle. All right? Any comments from the board?
Yeah, I've got a comment on that for what it's worth on frequency of recycling. I mean, I live by myself. I've got the big tall bin. It's 3 or 4 weeks before I put it out. I don't take it out till it's full because I don't like chasing my bin down the street after wind and careless collectors, So, to just tested on a 4-week period, it might be cutting it a little close for some.
Well, and that's why we thought, I thought it's best that we just do those that had nothing out for 4 weeks.
I may be one of those, okay, and I recycle 100%, okay, so it might be close.
You might be the only exception in the township.
I might be exceptional, yes.
I agree that, it could be only once or twice in a 4-week period if you're by yourself.
The
Well, I
letter,
think we should, actually,
And it's gonna be a reminder letter, it's not.
also gonna be a reminder.
Yeah, but I agree with Bill. I mean, I too, they chase after recycles because of the wind and everything else, and these workers are running around picking stuff off the ground. So I too agree with Bill, I'm just like to see it for 6 weeks, just because.
If 4 weeks was good with the old bids, okay? Because I definitely have to have
If
it
you
out
want
there
me to do
twice a
6
month.
weeks
with
and
that.
there's 33
I'd like to see
homes.
6 weeks
Why don't you just
myself.
put it in the newsletter and remind everybody?
A friendly reminder, yes.
Just put it in the newsletter, just,
I think it's still a good idea to put in the newsletter.
that's
The
all.
the newsletter is a good tool, but I can also tell you we get many phone calls about things that are in the newsletter. So if they're not recycling, they're probably not reading the newsletter.
Good point.
I don't think.
Are they recycling
might
the
be
newsletter?
It depends how it's worded. If it's just an advisory letter that if you aren't, please do so, I don't think that's gonna cause any problem.
And that's the type of letter it would be. I don't think, the intent is not to say if we don't do this, we're going to be fining
You
you.
know, trust anybody.
Explain that we did an audit over a 4-week period, and we recognize that in those 4 weeks, we did not observe anything out. Just make you aware.
Yes.
And if you're not, we ask that you begin, something like that.
Okay, is it, okay? We don't have to vote on this. Bill, you okay with that? Just a-
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Let's move on then, all right? Todd, manager report, what else do you have for us?
That's all I have unless you have any questions.
Okay, sanitary sewer.
Nothing new to report there except phase 3. They were planning to come in the week before Thanksgiving, start this week, but I wondered about that with deer season, so that's been postponed to next week.
You may want to explain to everybody where this,
Yeah, this is, if anyone's familiar with the village of Seitzland outside of Glen Rock. This is the 3rd phase for installing public sewer. Phase 1 and 2 consists of 25 connections, and that was completed in 2011. Phase 3 consists of 15 properties, and it's a relatively short project, should, if weather permitting, take about two to 3 months.
We sent out a letter for phase 1 or phase 2, Todd, to the people that haven't paid their bills yet, that we put liens on the properties, because yourself are almost internally.
Yeah, we have 3 properties, a total of 4 connections. And we did send letters out to them in September.
Any response?
No.
Anyone?
None whatsoever.
So my question is, I mean, this is something I'm not familiar with, since I've been a board member. Once we put a lien on properties, I mean, how long do we let this sit dormant before we enforce it with our solicitor? Like I said, I've never been faced with this before as a supervisor. So does anybody, how does this work?
A decision like that, Ms. Gillian, is at the discretion of the board, right? Sometimes there are good reasons to move ahead, sometimes there are reasons to hold back from condemning a property and obtaining that. I don't know the particular circumstances of why people do that, but it's a decision that you make at your discretion.
I think between you, Attorney Bob, and our manager, you advise us at some point when you feel there's no hope, we have to take additional action.
Yeah, my thoughts are, at least at this point in time, we're generating enough revenue to pay the bond payment. If we get to the point where we're not generating enough revenue to cover that, I think we need to pursue this. There's one property in particular, depending how that interest accrues, if the township is forced, the property's been vacant for 6-7 years, and it's starting to fall apart. My concern is it may not be worth what they owe at some point in time. that's something I think we have to take into consideration in order to recoup our costs.
You can bring us our attention at any meeting, and we'll take action.
And just for the public's information, between the 4 connections, it's approximately $80,000 outstanding debt.
A lot of money.
Okay, moving on, Attorney Buffy, you mentioned to inform us about.
Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to tell you I don't have any report today.
We're pleased to hear that, actually. Zoning officer, every month we get a report from our zoning officer, and he kind of specifies his involvement or activity during the month, enforcement activity and so forth. So everybody has a copy of that in their packet, which we get about a week ahead of this meeting. Any questions or comments on that? Next item, the maintenance department also gives us a copy of their activities. Engineer, we get a report from our engineer, C.S. Davidson, as to their activities over the month. Planning Commission, we get a copy of their minutes normally. They have recommended a sign, you want to discuss the sign ordinance amendment, Todd?
Yeah, they did. In addition to that, there's a couple of administrative housekeeping items that were discovered by a zoning officer and myself, which I want to go over. It's only a couple of them. If the board looks at page 3, where it talks about advertisements painted or displayed upon the barn or other building or structure shall be regarded as, and the current one says as a flat wall sign, which we have the regulations for, and the regulations pertaining there too. We recommend to the board that you put that back to the 2010 language, which says an advertising/billboard.
Excuse me. Billboards are not allowed in the ag zone. They're only allowed in the industrial zone, according to our ordinance. Yes, they are. Billboards shall be permitted in the industrial subject to the provisions of this chapter and the following criteria.
They're allowed in one industrial zone at the northern.
And they can only be 100 feet from an agricultural land or rural residential, suburban residential districts. You can't tell me that Swamp Fox's farm that says fresh farm produce has to be considered a billboard, which isn't allowed in the ag zone. You should allow it to be a wall sign.
Swamp Fox is also a business, and that would fall under the attached business signs to an individual store. That's true, but they also have a business.
It's a farm business.
Well, but you can't say that those advertising painted on a building in the farm is a billboard.
It doesn't say a farm, it says a barn. A barn doesn't necessarily have to be on a farm and only in the ag zone.
No, I disagree with that.
Let's move on.
Next item was, and again, this is just a clarification, it was a carryover from the 2010. Get down here. That is on your page 10 and 11. The old one referenced section 19-111, and it's actually 113. And the old one referenced chart A, which is now table 1. And then the temporaries are table 2. And we just added clarification there. And then we go into the tables, and you'll see here this P13D, which is what we talked about earlier, under the AT&T, and that's proposed to be added. And I think that is everything. So if the board's okay with that, we would ask that you authorize those amendments to be advertised for action at the January meeting. I want to get past winter.
We're entertaining a motion to approve the amended ordinance number 2015-01. Is there a motion? I'll make the motion to approve those changes.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Any discussion on the part of the board? I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
No?
Aye.
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 There's more than this that needs to be amended on this, just as a sign.
No. The next item, item number 10, is supervisors' comments. A member of this board can express any point of view regarding any subject matter?
I'd just like to make a comment. I'd like to make a motion at this time that the attached chart and the following figures go on record as the final figures for Sykes Land Sewer Project Phases 1 and 2 and partial expenses for Phase 3. The expense costs for Phases 1 and 2 are $824,491.53. Total grants applied to Phases 1 and 2 are $308,500, leaving a total cost of the project for 1 and 2 of $515,991.53. Total income from Phases 1 and 2 are $467,155.60, leaving a balance of minus $48,835.93, which was paid from the Township General Fund and not collected from Phases 1 and 2. Expenses going forward for Phase 3 is $77,183.56 of the $1,052,663.38 from the initial project cost. And then I have a chart that's attached that I just like to be in the minutes so that down the road we have an accurate depiction of what happened at Sykes Land Project so far to date.
I don't see a reason why we can't. That's her comment.
It's a motion.
Well, she made a motion. It doesn't have to be a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that the attached chart and the following figures just go on the record as the final figures for Sykes Land Sewer Project Phases 1 and 2 and partial expenses for Phase 3. That's my motion.
You know, you get it in minutes without making the motion, but you decided to make the motion.
Well, that's all.
All right, is there a second? See, a second. I have difficulty seconding something that I haven't verified those numbers. I'm sure you spent a lot of time on that, so I'm not demeaning you.
This was sent to everyone
Okay,
in September for them to, if they had a discrepancy, for them to bring it forward. And so I think since September, it's been 2 to 3 months. I mean, everybody, if you have a problem with the numbers, you should have spoke up.
I thought your major interest was getting it on the agenda, or getting it in the minutes, so.
I just want it in the minutes. It'll be in the minutes.
Okay, all right.
Here it is. I'll give it to Wendy. That's all. I just want it on the record.
That's fine. That's within your right. Any other comments from the board on the supervisor's comments?
Yes.
Proceed.
I have a statement I'd like to read, and I appreciate not being interrupted last time like I was when I
As long as
was
you're in
last
order,
time.
you will not be interrupted.
No, there's no order. I can put whatever I want to down, and I can make my comments. Thank you, Paul.
Within reason, yes.
No, not within reason. You're my supervisor comments.
Right.
Thank you. But nothing. Okay.
Proceed, by all means, but go right ahead.
I want to address several issues that have been long overdue. Starting out, at last month's meeting, I asked Todd, the township manager, to give me the cost of the attorney's fees that have been charged to the township from the appeals by Earl Shuckman. The attorney's fees at this point are in the amount of $1,400, and these are just the attorney's fees, not the office fees. I want the citizens of this township to understand the appeal process that has taken place over the past few months. Earl Shuckman has filed an appeal with 2 different issues with the Office of Open Records. First appeal, the township won. The second appeal was dismissed by the office, and the township gave Earl Shuckman the documentation he requested. But Earl still continued with this appeal, costing taxpayers money.
Old business.
This item probably should be tabled again because that's contingent upon the subdivision plan. So this next item, the TDR, transferable development right for the Foxville.
I'm just trying to catch my breath.
Okay. I'm trying to help you.
Okay. The item on old business, first item on old business is A, transfer of development rights agreement involving Sue Fox and Jeff Van Boris. I think we need to table that again. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to table.
The motion is second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Exit 4 interchange improvements. Todd, I'll turn it over to you. Introduce it to everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone has probably heard over the last year or two that PennDOT is looking to make some improvements to the Exit 4 interchange. They, through the York County Planning Commission and the Transportation Coalition, they were proposing what they call a diverging diamond. And I don't see people shaking their heads unless you've seen or familiar with it. There was a meeting held with York County Planning Commission and the officials of Hopewell Township, Shrewsbury Township, and Shrewsbury Borough, as well as the fire chief from Shrewsbury Borough. And out of that conversation, there were some other ideas that were tossed around. So PennDOT agreed that they would go back and take a look at those other possibilities and study them. They have completed that study, but we have not seen it at this point in time. They did share it with York County Planning Commission. What York County Planning Commission wants to do now is they actually want to establish a citizens advisory group where there will be a primary representative and an alternate from each of the municipalities, as well as the fire chief from Shrewsbury Borough, because they're first due in that area. They're looking to have meetings on an as-needed basis. The first one they're hoping to have before Christmas, so that they can share what PennDOT's results are. Our representative then would report back to the Board of Supervisors and the Township. So what they're looking for at this point in time is for the board to appoint a primary representative, and in that person's absence, an alternate. And again, if I can just add that this advisory committee will follow this project through the end of construction.
And do you have any suggestions as to who we could appoint? We need a primary and an alternate to serve this.
One person that comes to mind is Bill Webb, who is a member of the Planning Commission. I know he's expressed interest in that project. He's the only person I spoke to, and he would be interested in serving in some capacity. He will be out of the area for a few months from January through April. But again, this is not a monthly meeting or necessarily a quarterly meeting. The initial meeting is before Christmas, and York County Planning Commission told me they don't know when the second meeting will be. It all depends what the outcome of that
Does
is.
it have to be a resident of the township?
Yes, they would like to be a resident. Does not need to be an elected official.
Could it be an employee of the township?
It could be an employee of the township, it could be a resident of the township, but someone that either is an official of the township or a resident of the township.
Well, I'm interested in, I've been interested prior to being on this board about the improvements of exit for interchange, so I would like to have some involvement in this.
Bill, you expressed an interest. We had a very involved discussion with, we had a meeting, I believe, on this subject. Anybody else on the board would be interested besides Cynthia?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to help out on that.
Jeff, do you have any thoughts?
No, I was just would recommend maybe Todd, because of, just because of being a manager, I mean.
Yeah.
I was also going to recommend,
But I don't know if he's interested or not.
whether Todd or Phil
Doesn't matter if I'm interested,
Robinson.
I work for you, so.
I don't know if Phil would want something to
Phil?
do with it, but he's been around.
I'd like to do that if there'd be an interest to let me do that. I think I've had more involvement out there than probably anybody. And
Absolutely.
we've been working quite a bit on some of the road systems over there, and I think I can be, that's what I do for a living, and that's what I know.
I think it's a good idea, Jeff.
Well, there's
Phil
also-
Evans.
And I can make all the meetings. I'm not adverse to making any of the
He's in the
meetings.
ring, he's attached in the ring. Your other friend there, Mr. Montanarelli.
I have a great interest. I was the one who wrote the article about the diverging diamond that we should oppose it. And I've had a lot of interest in it over the year, and I know that they don't want to see me on it, but I have a great interest in what we do down there.
That's an understatement.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, so we have, I think that in any case, we need a primary and a secondary. Gosh, we're candidates, we're overwhelmed with candidates. I think Todd should be on it. What's on there as a board you want to?
I feel Todd needs to be on it because he's our manager, he's our spokesperson for the
I think-
board,
I think
and
he should be the primary and then possibly make even Phil Robinson, a secondary on it.
You want to be on too?
Now, I'm fine with the two of them, like I said, since Todd represents his township, I think he should be the primary on it, you know, and, you know, basically any issues, whether Phil or somebody else, he can take our input, mine,
Okay.
Phil Webb, everybody else's input, and he can bring up any of our issues at the meeting, but I think he should be our spokesperson, and have Phil Robinson on it also with him.
We only have a primary and alternate, period.
Correct, that's why I brought one and two.
Is York County Planning gonna have an issue with the committee, or they only want two?
They're only asking for two.
Well, that's what they're asking for.
Well, what's the sense of the board? It's either,
Yeah, I don't, you know, if we want two reps and one alternate, I don't think they're going to fight us.
But then two new chiefs and nothing, I'm just.
what's the sense?
Less is more.
Jeff, to make it's either Phil or Bill Webb or Mr. Montanarelli. We gotta make a choice. Let's do it quickly here.
I mean, the Shrewsbury, I don't know what Hopewell's doing, but I do know Shrewsbury Borough has a primary and alternate, but they're also going to be represented by their business association. So the borough will have
Why is
two.
that? Is that requested, or is that something they
The
did on their own?
borough decided that, so. So they'll
I
actually.
was gonna say, why don't we have
Yeah.
a primary and two alternates?
Yeah.
I don't see what's opposed, why that should be opposed to that. I mean, that way, I mean, if all three of you go, so be it. I mean,
All right, well, let's
I don't
do that.
think they should have a problem with that, because
Okay, why don't we have Todd and Bill Webb with Phil Webb as an alternate? Bill Webb's gonna be gone from January through April.
Well, seems to be gone for a while, then, I don't mean, I think Phil will be.
That would be
but-
an alternate would be there in our absence, the primary's absence.
Phil will be there in any case. If Todd couldn't make it or Bill couldn't make it.
And that's fine, I mean, I know, like I said, and it's okay, I mean, I don't have to be there, I have
Well,
interest with
as
the
far as
two.
I'm concerned, let's just put, if we can do this, just put Todd and Phil down as primary, Bill as alternate, if we can get away with it. I mean,
I have no problem.
because Todd, Todd as manager, Phil as, business person and everything, and then Bill as alternate because he's on the planning commission.
I think we also too, I think we really need to look at G. Montanarelli for an alternate. The reason I say that is he did spend a lot of time. Might not have got so far as he would have liked to, but he still was very interested and active in Exit 4. So I think, it wouldn't hurt to allow Gene, especially because he has a lot of knowledge about the Exit 4 interchange. And that's all we have to the board. I figured I'd throw it out there.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we appoint our manager, Todd Ziegler, as a primary, and have several alternates, including Phil Robinson and Bill Webb.
Not Gene.
Oh, how many alternates do we need?
It's not going to hurt anything.
Gene is very,
He's the primary,
he's
so.
very vociferous. Will you be, okay, what's the sense of the board? Let's move on here. Jeff?
I'd just like you to, I think it'd be good if you had Gene. If you didn't want to, then do. He spent a lot of time with it, I think he deserves it.
Oh, we'll make him, Bill, what do you want?
I'll second your motion as it stands.
Okay. We can make it, we already have two alternates. A third alternate,
It's
Gene?
not going to hurt.
Okay. We'll make Ms. Montgomery a third alternate. Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, okay, I'm talking about it.
Aye.
You will not be vociferous. Okay. He said to be vociferous. Aye. Okay. Aye.
Yes, all four.
All four ayes. Okay, good on. That wasn't easy. The SDCA agreement. Every year we have an agreement with the York County SDCA, so I want to talk about that.
This is an annual contract that we have with the SPCA, York County for Animal Care and Housing Agreement. And it's been the same fee for the last 3-4 years, which is, I think it's, I usually have it written by hand, $3,200 and some dollars in the store. Anyway, the only thing that Mr. Solomon suggested, we made the request that they provide us with a written quarterly report. So I did talk to Melissa Smith, the executive director, and she did add that as an item 12. Everything else remained the same. That they agreed to provide us with a quarterly report detailing the number of animals received from the township within a 3-month period.
Is there a motion to approve this agreement?
I'll make a motion to approve that agreement.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The budget. John, you want to take us in on the budget? And how this motion was made earlier in the meeting, how that's going to affect us?
Yeah. I wasn't expecting to do this, so bear with me. This is an overview of the budget that the board came up with as of our November 12th meeting when we actually discussed the fire tax, not the fire hydrant, but the fire tax. Here's the total, well, here's our anticipated fund balance at the end of December 31 of this year, which is roughly 2.6 million. Next year, we expect to bring in 2.3 million. Expenditures, that's going to be a little different without that 19.8, but it's 2.4 million. It's showing for 2015 alone a total deficit of all funds of 164,000. You'll see that here in the Seitzland and Pine Street sewer project. That's for debt payment. And the other thing is phase 3, we just put some placeholders in because we don't know what the total costs are for that project. And the general fund is where the most significant, and I call it a deficit, but keep in mind we have the $2.1 million in the general fund. This is for capital expenditures. The most significant capital expenditure of this $172 is $120,000 that goes toward a matching grant of $120,000 for park improvements at Windy Hill Park and Manchester Park, as well as improvements at Hangtown Park. And so that's the significant, and I don't have my note in front of me, but there were a couple other capital expenditures. So that deficit is not annual operating expenses. They're one-time occurring capital improvement projects, which is one reason we put money back periodically for those types of projects. What I'm going to do here, bear with me.
So we're going to have a public hearing on this, on the budget and so forth.
No, well, we're going to adopt, we're at the point where we're going to adopt it.
We're going to adopt it for and then it'll be advertised at the public hearing.
Yeah.
So we can make changes to it.
Right.
But, so, it'll be available for public inspection is what I'm trying to say.
No, it already has been.
It has?
Yeah, we authorized that. Yeah. It's ready to be acted on this evening. What I want to show you here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that.
I think the change is fire tax. That's it. Unless somebody else has an issue.
So I'm going to eliminate the fire hydrant tax.
Correct, that's what I just said. That's
Or no, let me back up because it did pass. That was you folks out here, I'm sorry.
correct. It passed. So that's the only change that I said.
So it is not going to change.
That's true.
Correct.
I'm still stuck on the first motion. So anyway, you have what's been proposed then, and this is what's been advertised. And has been available online for public inspection as well as here at the office. So if the board still finds it acceptable, we need a first and second to adopt the 2015 budget.
I'll make a motion to adopt the 2015 budget summary.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is, any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 I'm gonna change my vote. I'm gonna vote no because I'm unhappy about the fire tax situation.
Thank you.
It's still passing, but I'll make that point, I'm not happy about that. I can do that, can I, Mr. Solicitor? Okay. All right, moving on,
May I make a suggestion?
yeah.
That we do the new business and then come back and do the zoning ordinance amendments last.
That's a good suggestion. I'll get one thing straight. We have adopted the budget as of this motion was just made.
Right.
But there'll be no public hearing on it, or will there? Will we have a public hearing on that?
Well, it was advertised.
It was advertised.
The board authorized it last meeting to be advertised. It was available for public inspection.
Advertised.
And the public had the opportunity tonight to comment on it after they reviewed it.
All right.
No one reviewed it at the office. I don't know if anyone looked at it online.
All right. I see nobody has any hands up or anything like that, so okay, we're fine. All right, let's move on. New business, trash waiver, Town Road. You have a handwritten letter from the occupant. Summarize that in 2 sentences or less. What are your thoughts on it?
We have a request from a property owner who moved from the township to a new home in another township. They're paid up through December of 2014. Their house is for sale. My recommendation is that you table it. We don't know what's going to happen in January. They may sell a home. If they don't sell it, we can bring it back.
Is there a motion to that effect? We table this until it's on this week.
I'll make that motion at the table.
I'll second it.
Next month's meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item, stormwater O&M agreement.
This is the standard agreement that comes through when someone puts up a building or a new structure. It's a formality. We'll record it to recorder deeds, and it outlines the responsibilities of maintaining their stormwater basin or filtration system. And this is for the Glunt property at 13 Snyder Road.
And everything is right.
Yes. When we get to this point, the engineer and the zoning officer reviewed everything.
And they're satisfied.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve this agreement.
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Last item on the new business, large-scale burn.
Yeah, this is the property, 843 West Forest Avenue, where the home burned about a month or so ago. Our ordinance requires, if you're going to do a large-scale burn over 20 square feet, that you need to come to the board for approval.
What are they burning?
I don't know.
Because they hold everything away. What did they put in for this?
About a week ago. I don't know if anyone's here.
No, they're not here. I'm just wondering, because I thought they hold everything away.
It was about a week ago. They actually called.
Okay, because I thought I know they had dumpsters there. I saw most of the reason I said that.
Okay, well, you want to look into it?
No, I mean, I'm sure if they just put it in for a week ago, there's something there that they're going to burn.
You can also buy an annual burn permit for small burns for $5 a year. It's got to be renewed every year. And the large-scale burn is what happens occasionally for a much larger burn. You said 20 by 20?
I think it's 20 or 25 square feet.
All right.
The worst-case scenario is you approve it, they don't need to do the burns.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve this?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
And they have to notify the fire department and all that, so.
Yes, we'll let them
cover
do that. Yep.
Okay, now, let's go back, you want to go back now to,
The landscaping zoning ordinance, and actually, I don't think it'll take
it shouldn't take very
too
long.
long.
We never know, though.
No.
You may want to explain the process when it started.
If I think back with
It's been a long time, and who was involved with it, the purpose of it?
Yeah, the zoning ordinance amendments began approximately 2 years ago. The committee consisted of staff, which was myself, the township engineer, Megan in our office who does planning and zoning administration, Terry Ruby from York County Planning Commission, Bill Webb, who's a member of our planning commission, and Paul Solomon was on planning commission, and he served on up until January of this year. So that consists of the committee. We worked and made recommendations, and I believe it was in April when we presented the first round of the draft to the planning commission. I believe there were 20 articles. 18 of those they agreed to by consent, and the other 2 or 3 articles we've had discussion on definitions mostly, and Article 4, which is the ag zone. And once we pretty well got everything through Planning Commission, it then came to the Board of Supervisors, and they held a public meeting on October 30th. And we went through all those proposed amendments. And what we're going to go over tonight were just some of the questions, and we went back to clarify a couple of things. So it's not really a lot of significant changes since we met October 30th. So that's what we're going to run over. First one, unless you want to go over this in detail, but this was Appendix C, which is kind of diagrams that explain setbacks and so forth. And Supervisor Fox had asked for us to go back and just verify that everything matched up with the definition. So we're okay with Appendix C unless the board has any questions.
Thank you.
Under the definition of agriculture, again, Supervisor Fox had asked that we put something in there regarding chickens. It seems to have become the hot topic. Everyone wants a chicken in their backyard. And one other thing she recommended, and the committee agreed with, that lots between 3 and 10 acres in size, that 1 acre of land be devoted exclusively and continually available to livestock versus the 2 acres before. And then what you see highlighted here in yellow is we define this in the ag district on lots less than 3 acres, a maximum of 10 chickens are permitted. Chickens can only be hens, roosters are prohibited. And regarding any other zones, chickens and any other type of animal such as that falls under and is administered under our kennel ordinance that talks about you can't have more than four chickens, dogs, cats, whatever, combination thereof as pets. So is everyone okay with that?
It's brilliant. We didn't want to wait till somebody came in and wanted a chicken or had chickens, then we found out we didn't have any regulations, so now we do.
Well, surprisingly, if the zoning officer were here, he would tell you that that is a really hot topic. I don't know if anyone remembers, might be 15, 20 years ago, when the pot-bellied pigs became very popular and became big zoning nightmares. That's kind of where the chickens are headed right now. So. Next item is accessory dwellings. If you recall, this came up, there was discussion at the last meeting because accessory dwellings also included a sub-definition of tenant dwelling. And they kind of were intertwined, but they're really 2 separate items because tenant dwellings deal strictly with the agricultural zone. Accessory dwellings are multiple zones, and a lot of times deals with, we talk about the hardship cases where if someone had a family member that needed to be cared for short term, you needed to convert a garage or something into a living space, this accessory dwelling would address that. Whereas a tenant dwelling is totally separate, it's usually an independent dwelling unit and so forth. So what you'll see we're proposing here, in order to segregate the two, under accessory dwelling, is to eliminate the reference to tenant dwelling, and that's basically what we've done throughout here. In Article 4, accessory dwellings are permitted, but also tenant dwellings. Now you'll see when we get into the next section on tenant dwellings. And again, for purposes of clarification, we're proposing to change that term from tenant dwelling to an accessory farm dwelling. So you'll see that throughout, tenant changed to accessory farm dwelling. And again, just a little bit of language change to permit only one accessory dwelling. And again, we deleted all the reference to the ag zone, and that's pretty much it. Here, again, in our Appendix A, chart of uses, accessory dwelling unit, tenant dwelling, again, we're combined, but that'll become a new separate line item by itself.
And both our engineer and our zoning enforcement officer have looked at this?
Yes, they were part of that as well as Short County Planning.
They feel it's internally consistent?
Yes.
It'll work.
Yeah, what you're seeing here this evening, that committee consists of myself, Megan in the office, our engineer, rep from York County Planning Commission, and our zoning officer.
All right. Moving on.
Tenant dwelling, again, you'll just see throughout here where we're recommending deletion of the term tenant, replacing with accessory farm dwelling throughout. This here we actually did have in the earlier section, this language, and again, we just did the accessory farm versus tenant. Again, the single family detached, that becomes tenant dwelling becomes obsolete. We have that as a separate item now, or a separate type of dwelling, not a sub-dwelling of single family. Again, accessory farm dwelling, that language is added word only.
So it's allowed only in the ag zone,
That is correct.
and I can't build a new one. It has to be in an existing,
In existing, correct.
I can put it in an existing building, put it in, but I can't come in and say I want to build a new accessory.
And actually, the way the way the language is written is it actually has to be, find out where we have that. It's in the beginning. Okay, let me find it here.
It was there August 1st, was that the date? You're looking for a date?
I think it's out here. The way it's worded in here is it can only be in existing dwellings. So if you have a corn crib and you have the old hog house, the old chicken house, you cannot convert those into farm dwellings, accessory farm dwellings. And the reason the committee is recommending that is if there's a farm that has 4 or 5 empty buildings, without that kind of language, someone could conceivably have 5 farm dwellings, 5 rentals, yeah.
And so you're saying it's got to be a new dwelling?
No, well, and only an existing dwelling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it still requires an individual dwelling.
Correct. Yes, it does require, still continues to require the dwelling rates.
Okay.
Anything on that?
I have a question. Is there a reason you used the date of August 1st, 2010 instead of like a week or a month before the zoning ordinance is enacted?
That was when our previous ordinance was enacted.
Yeah, because what we had is the date of the enactment of this ordinance. For the existing second dwelling, what's in our text is that it'll be the date of when this one is enacted. Correct.
Answer the question. Okay. Well, there'll be a public hearing on this.
Correct.
So if you don't know the practice, the board has to approve this for a public hearing. Go ahead, Todd.
There were a couple of uses that did not have supplemental regulations. And we put these together, the mixed use with one or more commercial uses listed in the historic village overlay, which is basically the Seitzlin community with a residential apartment upstairs. That's the additional criteria that's being recommended. There's multiple uses, small shop type uses in the historic village overlay. Because so many of them, they're going to be small and they're relatively common in types of uses. The committee suggested that we reference village shops instead of coming up with a list of criteria for all these different types of uses, such as bicycle sales, service, retail, and so forth. So we'd list those and talk about outdoor storage of supplies and materials, any merchandise vended by the village should be displayed outdoors, pretty standard things. The only other thing that we talked about, and we were really looking for some additional direction from the board. I did take a look at that closer today, and I did have a chance to email it if anyone had a chance to look at it. I know Paul and I had a discussion about it. But that had to do with the brewery and vineyards, or wineries, I should say. Breweries, we're recommending actually that breweries in the commercial and the interchange zone be permitted as uses by right, not by special exception. And then for the winery, this is what we came up with, and the zoning officer reviewed this as well, and he and I made some proposed changes. And actually, I don't have the newer version up here, but basically, and I can point out what it is. These would be the supplementary regulations in the ag zone. It just talks about the location of the winery, except the growing of the grapes in conjunction with residential districts or a dwelling. We actually deleted this B where it talks about the minimum of the fruit that's grown, and just simply said that the fruit needs to be grown on the premises. This here talked about 50% grown in the township, 25% on the premises, and a maximum of 50% grown within 20 miles of Shrewsbury Township.
That's all come out.
Yeah, that's all going to come out, and just simply say it has to be produced on the premises. Then it just talks about, the general things that they need to provide to the zoning officer, hours of operation, lighting, litter, how that's all going to be maintained. Off-street parking, noise, lighting. Wine tasting would be permitted on the site, provided the wine tasting shall be only for products produced on the premises. Tasting or sale of wine not produced on site is prohibited. So if you have a vineyard and a winery, you can't go out and buy wines from Italy and sell them in your shop.
You can also have an orchard instead of a vineyard.
Oh, sure, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so they're going to be the one to make wine.
Retail sale, wine-related items, anything related to wine, the caps, the openers, all that good stuff. No outside display of wine products and retail-related items. And again, keep in mind this is in the ag zone. No operation hours between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and days of wine tasting shall not exceed 3 days per week. And then special events at wineries, including, and actually Keith's recommended that exclude weddings because that's been an issue in the past. So the zoning officer's recommendation is excluding weddings. And it just gets into things like dealing with adequate off-street parking, safety, emergency services. No more than 4 special events in a calendar year, and no event shall exceed 3 consecutive days. Again, adequate off-street parking, public facility services, utilities, relating to restrooms. Food is permitted provided it's catered. Food cannot be prepared on site. And one of the last things that he was suggesting, the zoning officer, deals with weddings, and that would be that weddings are permitted provided they're approved as a special exception by the zoning hearing board for a wedding. And then the following applies to the commercial and the interchange district. Again, it's possible that, you know, the fruit could be grown in those districts. We don't talk about anything as far as it has to be grown on the premises, because more than likely a winery in those two districts will be a retail outlet, or it would be a winery, not even necessarily in Shrewsbury Township, but it could be a winery that has their own vineyard somewhere. They produce off-site, but they bring their products into the township to sell at a location. Again, it gets into the same things about hours, lights, location, parking, wine tasting again. Everything's pretty much the same. The only thing that it talks about is the hours of operation are 8 to 9 p.m., but there's no limitation on the number of days. It could be a 7-day-a-week or 6-day-a-week operation. Again, because it's in the commercial interchange. Not that anyone would necessarily want to have a wedding in a commercial or an interchange zone, but one never knows. Including weddings, special events permit has to be issued by the zoning officer, which we've addressed in another section of the ordinance. They can have 2 special events per month. Each event shall not exceed 4 consecutive days. And when you're talking about a special event, that type of location, you're talking about outside of the retail store. Again, parking, public facilities. Food is permitted, it can be prepared on site, but provided the food preparation is in compliance with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. So that's what we're proposing for wineries.
No. Breweries. Do we still have that, a brewery classification, or do you?
Yes, yeah, we had talked about putting that as a use by right.
And then that goes into a commercial or a interchange zone? Or is that allowed?
Yeah.
That's what he had at that one.
Just want to make sure.
Yep, commercial interchange.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Anything else?
Any questions on that? I think in all these items we've already discussed. So that's all I have on the
Now, we need to explain the process, and then we'll vote on these changes. Okay. So, for the next number of months, these changes have been worked on, and now be before the board for final approval for a public hearing. And also to send to your county planning commission.
For their review and
Their
comments.
review within 30 days. But we can have a public hearing if everything falls in place at our January meeting.
Actually, would be our February meeting. And the reason being, your county planning commission requires that they need 30 days to review. Their meeting is typically the 3rd Monday of the month, so we're beyond their December meeting. And their January meeting, because of the holiday in January, is actually going to be January 26th. So if the board approves that they be forwarded to your county planning commission for review and comment, we would have them back in time for our regular board meeting. If you want to hold a hearing that time, or perhaps you want to hold, a second meeting of the month.
Well, the York County Planning Commission couldn't, they have 30 days, but they don't need to take 30 days.
No, but their deadline is 30 days prior to their meeting.
Shame on them. Okay, well, any comments from members of the board? Want to make a motion to approve this package of amendments? Mr. Shookman,
Earl Schultman. I have a question. Is there any type of a change in the agricultural zone as far as farms? Through the right to know, I was able to get what the planners have suggested. Is there a change from what the planners have suggested to what the supervisors are proposing?
Yes and no. The planners met at their last meeting, which would be the end of November, the exact date, the third Wednesday of November. And they did not recommend any changes at that time.
Okay.
They voted on recommended change to us, but they had, it was a 2-2 vote, so the motion failed. So our initial change stands. Even with their recommendation, we would.
So the change, the original wording from what I received from the Right to Know is the way the agricultural zone is going to be.
Which it is.
It's the way it always has been, that you could subdivide 50-acre farms.
No, I didn't say that. The change that is being made is this. Nothing to do